CO₂? I honestly cannot believe that we're talking about turning our biggest climate enemy into our ally. But hey, stranger things have happened. What if I told you that the very thing causing climate change could also help fix it? Sounds crazy, right? But let me ask you this. What if we could transform carbon dioxide, yes, that pesky greenhouse gas we're all trying to get rid of, into the energy that powers our future? Is that not a game changer? Isn't that the kind of breakthrough we've been waiting for? Look, we've been fighting against CO₂ for decades. But what if we could flip the script? Scientists are finding ways to convert carbon dioxide into usable energy. This isn't some far-off fantasy anymore. It's happening now, and it could be the key to a sustainable future. In today's video, we're diving deep into this mind-blowing science. Are you ready to hear the solution? Our planet is in peril, and it's all because of this tiny invisible gas, carbon dioxide, or CO₂. When we burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, we release this gas into the atmosphere. Now, a little extra warmth isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, since the Industrial Revolution, we've only added about 1.5 degrees of warming to the atmosphere. But this seemingly small increase has had some serious consequences. Rising sea levels, more extreme weather events and disruptions to our climate system that affect everything from the food we eat to the water we drink. But even though we know that cutting emissions is essential to slow down global warming, it's not enough on its own. You see, when we burn fossil fuels, we don't just create CO₂, we also create other harmful pollutants that can damage our health and the environment. So how do we tackle this problem at its source? Well, one innovative approach is to capture the CO₂ before it's released into the atmosphere. One way to do this is through direct air capture, which involves using machines that suck carbon dioxide out of thin air. But this method isn't perfect. For one thing, it requires a lot of energy, which could account for the process's overall carbon footprint. Plus, once captured, the CO₂ has to be stored somewhere. So what if instead of capturing CO₂ from the air, we could prevent it from being released in the first place? Enter carbon capture utilization and storage, or CCUS. Unlike direct air capture, CCUS doesn't just suck carbon dioxide out of thin air. It prevents it from entering the atmosphere in the first place. But how do we do that? Well, it all starts with the source of the problem, fossil fuels. When natural gas is extracted from the ground, it often contains impurities like carbon dioxide. By removing these impurities, we can not only reduce the amount of CO₂ being released into the atmosphere, but also create a valuable resource that can be used to make everyday products. One example of this is a company that captures CO₂ from natural gas and uses it to enhance oil recovery. By injecting the CO₂ into oil fields, they're able to extract more oil while simultaneously reducing emissions. Talk about a win-win. But that's just one example. There are all sorts of ways to utilize captured CO₂, from creating building materials to making plastic. The possibilities are endless, and that's why CCUS is an essential tool in the fight against climate change. It allows us to use fossil fuels while minimizing their impact on the environment. So as we look to a future powered by clean energy, let's not forget the power of CCUS. With this innovative technology, we can turn the very source of our energy production into a solution to climate change itself. And now we will be exploring Section 3 of our guide to going carbon neutral, the technologies behind CO₂ conversion. We've covered why we need to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and how we can do it in Sections 1 and 2. Now it's time to dive into the exciting world of carbon capture and storage and learn about the latest innovations that are turning CO₂ into a useful resource. So let's get started. First up, we have artificial photosynthesis. One of the most exciting breakthroughs in the field of CO₂ conversion is artificial photosynthesis. You know how plants use sunlight to turn CO₂ and water into glucose and oxygen? Well, scientists are trying to replicate that process using technology. By mimicking nature, artificial photosynthesis could turn CO₂ into valuable fuels like hydrogen or even methane. Imagine a world where we have machines that capture CO₂ from the air and use solar energy to convert it into clean, renewable fuel. It's a closed-loop system. CO₂ goes in, clean energy comes out. This process has the potential to revolutionize the way we produce and use energy, providing a sustainable and environmentally friendly alternative to fossil fuels. Next, we have electrochemical reduction. Another promising approach to CO₂ conversion is electrochemical reduction. This process uses electricity to reduce CO₂ into chemicals that can be used as fuel. Think of it as a way to recycle CO₂. By using renewable energy sources like wind or solar to power this process, we could create a truly sustainable energy cycle. Electrochemistry is already being used to create methanol, ethanol, or even syngas from CO₂. These substances are already used in energy production, so the technology is proven. It's just a matter of scaling it up. Now let's talk about biological conversion. Another fascinating avenue that scientists are exploring is biological conversion. Some microorganisms and algae can actually consume CO₂ and turn it into useful products like biofuels. These organisms are nature's way of converting carbon dioxide into energy. By harnessing the power of nature itself, we could develop biofuels that are carbon neutral or even carbon negative, meaning they absorb more CO₂ than they emit. By harnessing the power of nature itself, we could develop biofuels that are carbon neutral or even carbon negative, meaning they absorb more CO₂ than they emit. Imagine vast algae ponds or microbial labs that produce biofuel from thin air. It might sound like science fiction, but it's actually happening right now. Some companies are already using this method to create biofuels for transportation and heating. And last but not least, thermal conversion and plasma technology. There's also thermal conversion, a method that uses high temperatures or plasma to break down CO₂ into its basic components, carbon monoxide and oxygen. This process can be powered by renewable energy sources like solar or wind, making it a great option for remote locations or areas with high energy needs. The resulting carbon monoxide can then be used to create methanol, methane, or other valuable chemicals. While this technology is still in development, it shows a great deal of promise in terms of making CO₂ a usable energy source. So there you have it, folks. From artificial photosynthesis to biological conversion, there are all kinds of exciting developments in the field of CO₂ conversion. And who knows what the future may hold. But one thing is for sure, these technologies are just one part of the solution to our climate crisis. We also need to make changes to our energy use and production to move away from fossil fuels and embrace renewable energy sources. It won't be easy, but it is necessary if we want to create a sustainable future for ourselves and for generations to come. And now the potential impact on climate change. So you've learned about the science behind CO₂ conversion, how it works, and the different ways we can use it. But why does any of this matter? Well, CO₂ conversion has the potential to be a game changer in the fight against climate change. Let's take a look at why. First, it could help us capture and recycle the CO₂ we've already emitted. As the world becomes more industrialized, we've started burning fossil fuels at a higher rate than ever before. This has led to a buildup of CO₂ in the atmosphere and rising global temperatures. But if we can use these technologies to turn CO₂ into fuel, we can drastically reduce the amount of CO₂ in the atmosphere. Not only that, but we can also use it as a new energy source, one that doesn't harm the planet. Imagine a world where instead of burning coal or natural gas, we can burn carbon captured from the air. It might sound like science fiction, but it's really just basic physics and chemistry. With the right infrastructure and investment, CO₂ conversion could fit seamlessly into a future where renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydropower dominate. But it doesn't stop there. We could also use CO₂ conversion to create a more sustainable way of producing cement, steel, and other building materials. These processes are currently responsible for about 25% of global emissions. But if we can find a way to recycle and reuse CO₂, we can significantly reduce the environmental impact of these industries. It's an exciting prospect, one that could help us create a world where carbon is not just a waste product, but a valuable resource. A world where instead of worrying about the damage we've done to the planet, we can focus on all the good that's yet to come. But this is still a developing technology. The challenges are big. It's expensive to scale, and we need to make sure the processes are energy efficient. Plus, we're still figuring out how to capture and store enough CO₂ to make a significant impact. But progress is happening. Governments and private companies are investing heavily in these technologies. And the more research we do, the closer we get to a breakthrough that could make CO₂ conversion not just a possibility, but a reality. So we've got the technology, we've got the know-how. What we need now is action. We need to work together to develop the infrastructure and the policies that will allow us to harness this technology at scale. This is our shot. Do we have what it takes? Are you ready to join the movement? Because if we can turn this challenge into an opportunity, we can create a future where everyone can thrive. A future that's powered by innovation, driven by ambition, and fueled by the best technology has to offer. Could converting CO₂ into energy be the key to solving the climate crisis? It might be. We're standing on the edge of a new energy revolution, one that could change the way we power our world and our future. What role will CO₂ play in our future? So the next time you hear about CO₂, remember, it could be the very solution we've been searching for. The question is, will we be ready to harness its potential? If you found this video insightful and are excited about the future of energy and climate solutions, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps get this important message out to more people. If you want to see more videos on groundbreaking science, sustainable solutions, and the mysteries of our world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And hey, we'd love to hear your thoughts on CO₂ conversion. Do you think this could be the future of energy? Drop a comment below and let's get the conversation going.